I often call Kyushu like cradle of Japanese culture. Most people don't really realize that like historically when they first came to Japan, they kind of crossed over from Korea into Kyushu, and this is where people started living. This is pretty much where the Japanese culture has been kind of shaped and formed in many senses. Now Tokyo is the major hub. Most things come in through Tokyo instead, and instead Kyushu remains here in a way it doesn't in other parts of Japan.
Welcome back to the 10 Adventures podcast. I'm excited to talk about Kyushu today. Kyushu is a wonderful part of Japan that is quickly gaining a worldwide acclaim. Here to talk about all things Kyushu is Max Wall, a Swedish-born cycling guide. He went to school in Kyoto and has lived and guided in Kyushu for the past 7 years. Hi, Max. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much.
I want to start off and just learn about how you ended up in Japan, because it's such a daunting place to just go to with the language and the different culture. Can you tell me a bit about your story, about how you ended up in Japan?
So when it kind of all started when I was about 10 years old, I was completely hooked on, Harry Potter. And then one day my grandmother bought me this Japanese manga comic, and I was 10 and I was so proud that I was kind of reading real books now. So I was like super snotty and like, I don't need this like kids comic with pictures. But she got it for me, so I kind of started reading a little bit and got like completely hooked. It was just like mind-blowing to me, very different from like Western comics. And that was kind of my I guess gateway drug to a lifelong addiction to anything in Japanese. So that just expanded and expanded, and I got really into like Japanese culture and especially the Japanese language. So for me, it kind of started with wanting to really learn the Japanese language. So I started to go to these like night classes when I was in high school, but it was like it was quite some time ago now. So I think it's more popular now, but at the time it was like me and 5 other Swedish people getting together once a week to kind of study the Japanese alphabet. And I felt pretty quickly that I can probably do this a lifetime and I will never learn to speak Japanese. So better than to just save my money, and after finishing high school, I should go and live and study Japanese in Japan instead. So that's pretty much what I did. After finishing high school, I worked for a couple of years to save up some more money, and then I went to a Japanese language school in Kyoto. The plan was to stay there for a year, and I even thought like, because at the time I had a girlfriend back in Sweden, and thought like, maybe I'll just like do half a year and then come back early. But no, that's not what happened. I just got more hooked, and instead I extended it, stayed for 2 years. After 2 years, I still didn't want to go back home to Sweden, so I had to choose, should I go to like a Japanese university and then like find a job in Japan. But if I go down that route, I will probably like never live in Sweden again. So I thought like, okay, maybe go back to Sweden, go to the university in Sweden, because that's free for one, and Japanese university costs a lot of money. So I went back for a couple of years to Sweden, went to Swedish university, and then after graduating, I kind of once again came back to Japan looking for a job. And my personal, like my idea I had was like, okay, find a job in Japan. Probably I will have to start as like an English teacher, because that's what most foreign people do. But what I really wanted to do is like something more in connection with how people live and like more kind of social aspects to it. And my goal was also to live in Kyushu, in a small town. So that was kind of what I wanted to do long term. But then I was really lucky, because a friend of mine, he was just helping out, starting up a DMO here in Kyushu, and they wanted someone who could speak English and Japanese because they wanted to do more things directed at foreign tourists. And he said, like, yeah, if you're interested, we can go down and have a look, and and that sounded like amazing to me. It was like jumping over maybe these kind of 5 years of like working as an English teacher and trying to building a network and just going straight into more of what I wanted to do. So then we came here to the town where I'm living right now, in the middle of Kyushu, a small mountain town of about 4,000 people. It was just like a perfect fit, match made in heaven.
What drew you to Kyushu? For a lot of people, they only know the big cities in Japan.
Yeah.
Kyushu seems to be a place where people go once they've been to Japan a few times. But for you, what was the reason that you knew you wanted to live in Kyushu? You wanted to live in a small town?
Yeah, well, because when I studied, I lived in Kyoto, and even as like a student, when we had time off, I would go to like Tokyo, and I went to Hiroshima. I also pretty much did the golden route first, but then after a while, I kind of wanted to go to somewhere more authentic, more deep, more like, I guess, off the beaten track. And that's when Kyushu kind of appeared to me when I researched online. So I started by doing like a 10-day backpacking in Kyushu, and I really remember, because I was a student, I didn't have that much money, so I was like riding on these very local small trains that would go through these kind of deep valleys, very like deep valleys of very forested mountains, along these small rivers, and you would have these really small kind of rustic Japanese villages, kind of dotted along the mountains. And I just thought that scenery was so magical and like kind of out of this world. And I remember sitting on those trains thinking that like at some point I really want to live in one of these small kind of mountain villages, and on the weekends go down to the local izakaya, like the local pub with the local people, and have some sake and really kind of live in the kind of deep authentic Japan. Yeah.
Now, I think one thing that's interesting about Japan is it's really hard with the language difficulties.
Yes.
When you get, even in Tokyo, it's hard if you don't speak Japanese. When you go to these more remote parts of Japan, it's really hard to engage with the culture. And like, if you think back to when you first went to Japan and your experience now that, you're fluent in Japanese, like, what can you tell people who maybe, haven't experienced like that ability to connect with, a group of locals in a Japanese pub or a Japanese restaurant? Like, how different is it for you now compared to when you first went to Japan?
So yeah, of course it's very different, because now I can communicate without like normally with anyone, and that of course opens up a lot to kind of learn about the Japanese mind and how people think, and like you can really get into deep discussions, which of course wasn't possible when I just arrived here. But what I think is really cool about Japan is that people are very hospitable and very friendly, and many people, I feel even more so maybe in Kyushu, in these rural areas, because it's not as crowded, it's not as much tourism, that when people here meet people like tourists, they're very appreciative of them coming from far away, and they're very willing to interact, even if it's just like the communication isn't perfect. They're really like, even if you can't speak Japanese and go into one of these small local pubs and sit down, people will most likely start talking to you with some kind of mixture of like Japanese and a few words they might know in English. And I think that's one of the cool parts, that you can have an interaction with local people as well, even if it's going to be different from like if you can speak perfect Japanese, of course. But
You talked a little bit when you first came to Japan doing the golden route, and it seems everyone's going to Japan right now, and everyone's kind of doing the same itinerary, which
yeah,
is, land in Tokyo, go to Kyoto, go to Osaka. They might throw in Hakone, they might throw in, something else that, in there.
yeah.
But it seems like everyone's first trip to Japan is very similar. How would you make the case for someone, okay, once you've done your first trip, come to Kyushu next? How different is it going to be for people? And what are some of the things that just, you've seen blow guests' minds when they actually see it firsthand?
I often call Kyushu like the cradle of Japanese culture. Most people don't really realize that, like, historically, when like what we would now classify as like the Japanese people, when they first came to Japan, they kind of crossed over from Korea into Kyushu, and this is where people started living. And then most of like cultural influences from India, China, Korea, all of that has first came in through Kyushu, and this has kind of been the melting pot or cooking pot for like the Japanese culture, and then it has kind of spread up through Japan. So this is pretty much where the Japanese culture has been kind of shaped and formed in many senses. Which compared to now when Tokyo is the major hub, most things come in through Tokyo instead, and instead Kyushu has kind of remained this, in a sense, this old traditional like Japanese culture remains here in a way it doesn't in other parts of Japan. So I really think like what many Western people or like foreign people overall who's not from, I guess, maybe Asia, think of when they think of like Japan and Japanese traditional culture, that and like Japanese hospitality, they actually think of Kyushu. So if you want to get like the most authentic Japanese experience, I think Kyushu is definitely the place to go. Especially, when it comes to like how people live and like food and all those things. This is like Kyushu is definitely the place to be.
I think we were talking before we started. We were in Kyushu recently, and it was just such a beautiful place. Like it
Yeah.
really, really was this rugged island that had, you know, uh, it had some aspects of like in Fukuoka of like, a big Japanese city, but then you had just this stunning beauty, great little towns, as you said. It really was just like this perfect mix where, again, my wife and my kids are always like, already like, when can we go back? When can we go back? So it's one of those places where you go and you just want to go again. Before we talk a little bit about some of the things to see, I know people always feel like Japan is everything's so spread out. And,
Yeah.
you can only see things that are, in one little area. But Kyushu isn't like, it isn't far away. If you're in Tokyo or Osaka, it's really easy to get to Kyushu. Do you want to talk a little bit about how to get to Kyushu? What the major gateways are to the island, as well as when you think the best time to go there is?
Getting to Kyushu is, as you said, it's actually not that hard. It's like Fukuoka has an international airport, so you can actually fly straight to Fukuoka if you want to. But like most people will probably go to Osaka or Tokyo first, and then from there you can either take you can fly down. It takes like 1 to 1.5 hours, or you do the Shinkansen, go straight down into Kyushu, into Fukuoka. So especially if you have the like Japanese rail pass, it's very easy to get here. But yeah, definitely like Shinkansen or flying into Fukuoka is the easiest way.
And then in terms of season, like I know Japan is surprisingly hot in summer, that it's one of the places I've been there once in summer and I probably would give it a miss in the summer season.
Yeah.
But, someone who lives in Kyushu, what is the best time of the year to explore the island?
Yeah, well, definitely, I think spring and autumn is the kind of best seasons, without a doubt. Not, as you said, like summer is very hot and very humid. It's like being in a sauna 24/7. It's not very very nice, and especially in like June, July is also kind of rainy season. So we get a lot of rain, and that comes with its own set of natural. This has like landslides and stuff, and summer has like all the summer storms, hurricanes, and whatever it is. So like stay clear of maybe June to August, I would say. But other than that, I think you can come whenever you want. Like, of course, the peak season is spring and autumn, but maybe one of the most underrated seasons is winter, because like Kyushu is overall a very volcanic island with lots of volcanoes, and with lots of volcanoes you get a lot of hot springs, and there's like nothing better than a hot spring at winter. And since down here we don't get as much snowfall as you would get in like Sapporo or like Hokkaido, so you can still do like hiking and a lot of outdoor activities, and it's just amazing to, after a full day of hiking or biking, to just like sit down in a open air hot spring and have some warm sake after that. That's definitely
And yeah,
way to enjoy winter.
If you're coming from a cold environment, winter is not really winter. So, coming from Western Canada, we left kind of like minus 30 Celsius, and in Kyushu was like 12 Celsius, and it was dry. Like there's no rain. So it was like, I tell everyone, all my friends, like, it's like a warm weather vacation. It's kind of like, skipping forward 5 months into spring. We didn't do any hiking or, cycling, but we were up on, we did a lot of the outdoor things, and it was beautiful weather. And so I love the suggestion of the winter season. Also, I don't think we saw another tourist. Like it was,
no.
Tokyo was still jammed and Osaka still had a lot, but I don't think we saw another tourist in all of, maybe in Fukuoka we did, but it was kind of fun just, after seeing so much tourism, to kind of get to a place where you felt like you were exploring. It was really, it was just
you can
really
kind
a lot
of
of fun.
breathe a bit easy. Like,
You have a couple tours on 10 Adventures that I wanted to share because they're just incredible. And I want to maybe talk about first one, a 5-day cycling tour that also includes some incredible gourmet options. And I wonder if you could talk also a little bit, first off, maybe what this tour is about, but let's lean into the food, because I think all of us who come to Japan, we want to explore the different food and the different flavors. And, each part of Japan has slightly different culinary traditions. Can you talk about that trip a little bit?
And that trip is very close to my heart, because it's mainly focused around the Aso area, the Aso region where I'm situated. So around this big active volcano sitting right in the middle of Kyushu, which has this huge caldera, this volcanic crater. So there's a lot of like fertile soil and a lot of hot springs, and a lot of kind of small villages scattered around the volcano. And it's really a really cool place, actually, because there's inside of the caldera, there's like towns and villages, and in the caldera of an active volcano. And I think this is the only place in the world where you have that at this scale, where you have like train tracks and schools and stuff pretty much inside and a very active volcano. So it's a very unique place, and the scenery is very dynamic and just completely blows you away. And through this tour, we kind of cycle through kind of onsen town to onsen town, staying at the different onsens, the onsen ryokan, and along the way we kind of visit the local farmers. And one of kind of the most appreciated experiences is visiting a local farmer, where we kind of together go to their field and harvest the seasonal vegetables and cook together this really kind of authentic Japanese meal. Because often as a tourist, if you go a traveler, you go to like restaurants or you stay at the ryokan, you get these really kind of big, that's what everybody says, it's so much food, like I can't eat this all. And you get that every day. But here we really try to more replicate what they would eat in their everyday life. So you kind of really get a sense of like, okay, so people who live here in these small mountain villages in rural Japan, what is what is it they eat? What does a normal meal look like? And people appreciate that a lot. And the farmers we visit are close friends of mine, and they're very, very nice people as well. It's super lovely 78-year-old lady who is just like a ball of energy, and everybody loves that experience so much. You really get a sense of this kind of Japanese kind of culture and tradition of eating together with the seasons. You eat what's like for tomatoes, it's like you eat it mostly during the summer because that's when the tomatoes taste the best. So you kind of you don't eat everything all year round. You eat things that are in season, which is, if you live like in a large city, that's not really the case because you have everything at any time in the supermarket. But it really affects what the different crops and the ingredients taste like. It's completely different thing eating a tomato in like a freshly picked tomato in the summer to one that has been like in a supermarket for 3 days in the winter. It's just it's another world.
It's funny. I spent my summers on the family farm as a kid, and how you're describing fresh vegetables, like I try and tell people, like, just like freshly picked potatoes, if you fry those, it's like nothing you'll ever have. Like going out and like cutting your own asparagus or picking your own strawberries. It all tastes like candy almost. And I couldn't imagine, marrying that super fresh produce with all the different flavors in Japan. But my question, I was thinking, like, what are the like highlights? Like when Japanese people travel to Kyushu, what is like the must-have food that they have to get? Are there certain things that, Kyushu is famous for?
Ramen is famous all over Japan, right? But the most, I guess, one of the most common one, tonkotsu, the pork broth ramen, comes originally from Fukuoka. So many people go to like Fukuoka to have ramen, and especially in Fukuoka, it's really nice because you have these small. It's called yatai. It's kind of these open air food stalls that are kind of open up in the evening, line up along the river and along the streets, and they can maybe fit 5 to 8 people, and it's kind of a mix of locals and visitors who kind of sit shoulder to shoulder in these really small kind of portable food stalls, eating like the ramen and yakitori and kind of street food. So that's just like the food is good, but it's also the atmosphere and the experience. And then
and I think everyone's seen those on YouTube or on social media, and they've probably wondered, where is that? Because if you go to the rest of Japan, you don't find those. They're in Fukuoka.
No. Yeah, Fukuoka. That's the place. That's really nice. Some people call it like a tourist trap, but I think it's a trap that you will gladly get trapped in. It's
fun. It's a super experience.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned onsens a little bit, and I know like every person, myself included, was really confused as to the rules or the etiquette in an onsen. Can you just share the definitive onsen etiquette? So when someone's going, they, because it's confusing, and it's good just know this is how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah. I remember first time I went to an onsen, I was scared. It's kind of an intimidating experience, right? And you're like really afraid to do something wrong, right? But I think the most important thing is you go and you shower and you wash yourself before getting in the onsen. That's like the number one thing, because like the onsen it's a shared bath, right? So you don't want to bring all your kind of dirt and sweat and stuff into the same bath that everybody's using. So I think the main thing is like, just they often have these small kind of washing stations. So you sit down and you wash yourself and make yourself clean before you get into the onsen. That's like the most important thing. And also before leaving the onsen, when you go back into the dressing room, you should like wipe off your body. And you have these small towels with you, right? So you should wipe off your body before entering, so you don't get the floor and everything inside all wet. I think that's like two major things that people would, I guess, Japanese people would like be irritated about if someone did. Then like often when you see these kind of these information sheets about the onsen, you have all this weird stuff like you shouldn't wash your clothes in the onsen, and like I think that's kind of self-explanatory, but yeah.
The other big thing is you're going to be naked with other people you don't know. And I think it's funny because Japan seems like a very kind of not conservative society, but a very respectful society.
Yeah.
But then everyone's in the onsen naked together, which the first time it's like, what's going on here? But it's amazing how quickly, because it's just not a big deal. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like the first time feels like are we supposed to be doing this? And then, yeah, very quickly. So yeah, no, this is just normal. This is how things happen here.
Yeah, and like even before Japan opened up to the rest of the world, the most onsens were mixed, right? So it was like men and women bathing together in the nude, and it wasn't a big deal. Then when we Westerners came in and said, "This is barbaric, stop it right now," they kind of split it into two different. But yeah, but no, it's very fascinating. I was also very like felt weird about it at first, but now it's just like completely feels very normal.
Well, there are also like some hotels or ryokans that have their own private onsens that you can reserve. So I know if you're traveling with kids, because I think a lot of onsens don't even allow children in there, or maybe they do. In our case, we just said the kids were uncomfortable, so we just put them in. They had like family onsens where you get a private onsen just for your family, which actually was a ton of fun because we've never done anything like that. To have the whole place just to yourself was a fun experience.
That's that's very true. Like me, I also have two kids, and we often go as well. And especially here in Kyushu, you find those family onsens a lot. And of course, if you're staying at the ryokan, the Japanese like hotels, you can often rent one for free. But many places around here actually have them. That it's not so you don't have to stay like overnight or anything. It's just an onsen, and you just pay a very cheap fee, and you rent it for an hour, and you can kind of do that as well. And you can even do that by yourself. You don't have to go with family or have kids with you. You can do that on your own or as like a couple or anything if you don't want to be in the nude with complete strangers. And that's very nice.
We also have a 6-day cycling and hiking tour that's really popular. Can you talk about that and some of the things travelers say they just love on that tour?
Yeah, definitely. So that tour is also focused. It goes through Kumamoto and Miyazaki Prefecture, and especially the part in Miyazaki Prefecture is very interesting, and many people appreciate it a lot. It's because the area Takachiho in Miyazaki is pretty much where Japanese myth and like this, they have this old Shinto religion, as it's called, this like nature belief, which is the traditional religion of Japan. So in Japan, you often have the shrines and the temples. So temples are for Buddhism, and the shrines are for Shinto. And all of these Shinto myths, they stem from Takachiho. So it's kind of the place of kind of gods and old kind of spiritual tradition. And you have these kind of traditional Japanese kagura dances that that they used to do like all through night, a dance dedicated to the gods, and among other things, we like see a very local version of this. Often, what tourists see, they see kind of a kagura dance that is aimed at tourists. That is like in a very kind of touristy setting. But what we do is have a private one performed by local people at a very small accommodation. So it's a kind of private performance, which is a lot more true to kind of the authentic style. Apart from that, we walk through the Takashio as this beautiful gorge, the columnar joints. So would
Oh
you?
yeah. Oh, they're not lava tubes, are they?
Yeah, maybe
No,
not lava
I
tubes.
know.
It's called, like, I think the correct word is like columnar joints, but I don't know if that's a word that actually means anything to most people.
Yeah, it is columnar joints. Yeah, it's like it looks like someone poured concrete. You're like,
Yeah, it's
these are all
really,
like geometrically perfect. You're like, what
yeah,
is?
perfectly geometrical shapes that has, like, because it's the lava cooling down, it kind of breaks off in these perfect geometrical shapes when it splits. And you can really see the shapes and how the lava has been flowing depending on, like, the different eruptions. It's like geologically, it's such a cool place, and it's so easy to imagine how people of the past, like, looked at these shapes and thought, like, this must have been created by the gods, because, like, even looking at it now, most, like, guests I bring there, they like, oh, who built this, who chiseled out this, because
Yeah.
it's so hard to imagine that these are natural, like, these have appeared naturally. So yeah, like, walking through that gorge is amazing, and that's a pretty popular tourist spot. But we kind of adjust the tour to make sure that we walk there, like, early in the morning when it's not that crowded, and then we do, like, this super nice traverse across a place called Kiritachi-goi. It's pretty much like the Misty Mountains of Japan, which is, if, like, you're into samurai culture, like the last samurai war, the loser, he kind of used the same trail as he kind of fled away from his pursuers, and it's a very historic trail that also has been used to, like, fairly until, like, 50, 60 years ago. It was still used as kind of a made road for travel. But it's a stunning road with the local guide that we bring. He's pretty much, he grew up in those mountains, and, like, even a lot of the fauna, like the trees that only, and, like, plants that grow there are actually named after him, because he's the one who discovered them. Yeah, it's a really nice tour as well, with a lot of nice hikes. And then a lot of cycling. Also, we actually use e-bikes to cycle all the way up to the Aso volcano. So like mounting the volcano with e-bikes, and you can actually go all the way up to the active crater and pretty much peek into the active volcano. So yeah, that tour it's really nice as well.
Yeah, like I think almost any day on that tour is worth going to Kyushu just for the one day. But when you
Yeah.
combine day after day of that, it's just like superb day after superb day. You said you got into, you're in Japan now because you fell in love with manga comics. For people
Yes.
that don't read them, and my kids, we've got a bunch of them, but for an adult who wants to discover this, part of Japan that's just so powerful, what is the best manga to get into to kind of understand the influence as a Westerner?
Okay, so I think as an adult, you should start with a manga or anime, and I think anime is the way to go, maybe, but called the Death Note.
Death Note.
Yes, it's because most people think of, like, it's comics or animated, that it's mainly for kids, but in Japan it's not necessarily that way. They have the ones for small children, for adults, for, like, pretty much anyone. So it's definitely not a form of entertainment that is only for kids. And Death Note, it's more kind of a thriller, suspense, very kind of psychological, smart, kind of mind game thing. So I think if anyone who watches it will get hooked on it, and it's very easy to understand, like, okay, this isn't only like a kid's thing. This is for adults as well. So I think definitely that one. But then otherwise you have, like, the Studio Ghibli that has like the Spirited Away and, these famous movies that are very popular abroad as well. Like those movies are kind of timeless, and, anyone, they are so magical, and like pretty much anyone, regardless of age, I think will appreciate them. I remember showing my parents them the first time, and they were like very skeptical at first, but yeah, I got them as well. So.
Max, it's been great to hear about so much about Kyushu, and it really is this undiscovered gem. Thanks for sharing all your expertise with all of us today.
No, it was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
I'm going to put links to the trips Max talked about in the show notes. And with that, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the 10 Adventures podcast. We'll be back next week to explore the world and hear about more epic adventures. Bye-bye. Start planning your own adventure by visiting us at 10adventures.com and listen to other episodes of the 10 Adventures podcast on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you find your podcasts.